Next up in the second 90%, which is this is more polished type stuff, but I want to talk about implementing haptic feedback into your apps. If you're not familiar, haptic feedback is that little vibration, that little tap you feel on the phone sometimes when you do interactions. We're going to implement that in our app. But first, let's go to the human interface guidelines and learn how and when you should use this. Now, I'll link to the human interface guidelines you see here in the descriptions for you to fully read through it, but we'll touch on some highlights. Well, first, this just tells you kind of what haptics are. It's kind of, you can play with them and get a feel for them on the haptics. But what I want to talk about and touch on here is the designing with haptics. And again, it's another long list, but we're going to touch on a couple of them. I highly encourage you to go in and read this whole thing. Again, link will be in the description. But here's what we want to do, right? Because I think you can go too far with these haptics. So here, use haptics judiciously. For example, use haptics when they provide long-lasting value. Using them to add novelty can make your app feel gimmicky. So don't just add them everywhere, right? Prefer adding haptics to a small number of significant and consequential interactions. Playing haptics for a large number of trivial interactions can overwhelm people. So for our app, we're only going to use them in one place, and that is checking in and checking out of a location, because I feel that is a significant and consequential interaction within our app, right? Our whole app is about checking in and checking out and finding people. So that's why we're going to use it there and nowhere else, because again, you want to avoid overusing them. It's just too much. The last thing I want to talk about is to make haptics optional. Now, we're actually not going to do this because it would involve building a setting screen or adding new settings to our profile. Again, it's just, I had to draw the line somewhere. I will talk through when we're building it how you potentially would make them optional. And by optional, they're not talking about, the Swift optional. They're talking about allowing the user, again, to go into some sort of setting screen and turn off haptics if they don't like them. That way they can not use them if they don't want to. Okay, so back to Xcode. Let's actually start building this. Now we're going to put this code in the extension on our view. So utility, I'll tell you why in a second, extension view. Because similar to dismiss keyboard, we want all of our views to have this potential. Even though we may not use it on all the views, we want the potential there. That's why we did the extension, rather than only implementing it in one view. Even though I understand we are using it in just the checkout, I feel like this is a behavior that for my app, I want access to it, from all of my views in case I need to use it. So we'll do func play haptic. It's a simple function. So the first thing we need for this is a UI feedback notification generator. So we'll say let generator equals UI notification feedback generator. We'll initialize a new one, and we'll do generator dot notification occurred, and then notification type. If you hit dot, you can see we get error, success, and warning. And you can experiment with these. The haptic pattern, the intensity of them is a little bit different. So you can experiment with this because first of all, you'll see in a second, you're gonna have to run this on your device, right? You can't play haptics through your simulator, right? It's actual physical vibration that you feel. So feel free to change this around and run each one on your device so you can feel them differently. I actually did a YouTube video on this a while ago. You can follow that tutorial if you want, where I created a small little app that has a bunch of buttons on it, and each button plays a different haptic. And that's kind of a nice little tool to test. I'll link to that in the description as well. But for us, we're gonna do success. Right? So that's all the code, right? Play haptic, generator, success. And if you saw the cleanup video, we're gonna do 2 spaces vertically before I forget. So now that every view has the ability to play haptics, again, I'm doing that on purpose. If you do want to restrict this to just the check in, check out areas, that would be fine. I'm kind of future-proofing this and letting all my views have access to it. So let's go to where we're checking in and checking out. The first place is the location detail view. So let's go to location detail view. I don't even want the preview. Get out of here. So our button here, this is the button to check in and check out, right? Remember, we're hiding it if we don't even have a profile. So on the button here, this is the action. The action is the update check-in status. So here we're going to do play haptic. Right? So what's going to happen is it's going to fire off the view model. It's going to play the haptic. The reason I'm playing the haptic right away, even though it's called success, we're not waiting for success, because that would feel weird. Haptics are supposed to happen as soon as you tap something. So if we did it on the success of our network call, if you're on a slightly slow network, the haptic would be delayed by half a second, 2, 3 seconds, waiting for that success. So we're going to play the haptic as soon as we tap the button. Okay, so that takes care of that spot. And then now in our profile view, on our checkout button, Here is, and I know my text is still small. I forgot. I made it smaller for when I was doing the cleanup. So we'll make that bigger. Hopefully you could see the last one. Actually, let me go back. Location detail view, just in case you couldn't see it, right? We put it there in this button. Apologize for that. Okay, profile, that's modal view, wrong. Profile view. So here's our checkout button, right? So if we are checked in, we're showing this button. This is the checkout button. And again, I want to refactor this so this just says checkout button another time. So same thing. We'll do play haptic. And now to test that, go ahead and run this on your device. Try checking in, checking out on both the location detail screen and in the profile screen, and you should feel that little slight haptic when you tap the button. And again, feel free to go back to your view extension, play with dot error, play with dot warning, see just to feel the differences. And like I said, check out the YouTube video, build that app along with me in that tutorial, and you'll have an app on your phone that plays all the different kind of haptics, so you can, play with that, get a feel for it. Okay, so that's the basics of haptics. Again, don't overuse them. We're only using them in a very significant part of our app, which is checking in and checking out. But you can see how you can add a little extra layer of polish to your apps.